My beloved child, there is something you need to hear about yesterday. Someone crossed paths with your soulmate, someone who saw them, spoke with them, or witnessed something connected to them, and before that day was over, everything changed. Now that person is hospitalized. But before your mind races toward fear or guilt, listen carefully. The words, "because of you," do not mean what you may first think they mean. There is a hidden connection between you, your soulmate, and what happened yesterday, and the truth begins with something that person discovered. I am Michael, and I ask you to receive this message with discernment, not panic. What happened is not proof that you caused anyone harm, nor should you carry responsibility for circumstances you did not create. But your name, or something unmistakably connected to you, became part of a moment so emotionally intense that it exposed a truth your soulmate had been trying to keep buried. Yesterday appeared ordinary at first. Your soulmate moved through the day carrying thoughts they had not shared openly. Imagine a quiet road beneath a gray afternoon sky, cars passing, people continuing with their lives, while one person carries a secret heavy enough to change the direction of a relationship. That was the atmosphere surrounding this encounter. The person who saw your soulmate noticed something immediately. Something was different. Your soulmate was distracted, emotionally unsettled, unable to hide what was happening beneath the surface. Then came a conversation that was never supposed to go as deeply as it did. One question led to another, and eventually the subject turned toward you. That is where everything shifted. Your soulmate may have tried to change the subject. They may have looked away or become unusually quiet. But sometimes silence reveals more than words, and the person standing before them recognized something your soulmate had worked very hard to conceal. Whatever exists in their heart concerning you has not simply disappeared. Then something unexpected was said. Your name may have been spoken directly, or you may have been described without being named. Either way, the emotional reaction was immediate. The person listening suddenly understood that you were not merely someone from your soulmate's past or an insignificant chapter they had forgotten. You were still part of the story. And what happened afterward is why you must hear the rest carefully. The hospitalization that followed should not be interpreted as divine punishment, revenge, or supernatural harm caused by you. God does not ask you to celebrate another person's suffering, and heaven does not teach you to carry false guilt. Instead, understand the deeper meaning. A serious human event occurred around the same time a hidden emotional truth was coming into the light. There is a difference between connection and blame. Remember what Scripture teaches in Psalm 34 verse 18, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted." Those words matter here because several hearts in this situation may be carrying more than anyone realizes. Your soulmate has been wrestling with something privately, and yesterday someone finally saw behind the walls. But there is another detail. Before that person was hospitalized, something was communicated, something concerning you. It may have been a question, a warning, an observation, or a confession that forced your soulmate to confront what they had avoided. And once those words were spoken, they could not simply be taken back. Your soulmate heard something that stayed with them. Imagine standing beside a lighthouse at night while waves strike the rocks below. For hours, darkness covers everything, yet one beam keeps circling across the water, revealing pieces of what was hidden. Yesterday was like that. One conversation became a beam of light passing over a truth that had remained concealed. And you were at the center of what was revealed. Perhaps you have wondered why this connection has felt unfinished. Why certain memories return when you believe you have finally released them. Why silence between two people can sometimes feel louder than conversation. But do not mistake emotional intensity for certainty about another person's choices. Human hearts are complicated. Free will matters. Timing matters. Truth must be tested by actions, not merely feelings. That is why what your soulmate did after hearing those words matters more than anything they may have said before. Their reaction revealed something. They did not respond the way the other person expected. For one brief moment, the mask slipped. And the person who witnessed it understood that your soulmate had been hiding a deeper truth about you. My beloved child, do not allow fear to control what you hear next. Pray for the person who is hospitalized. Ask God for mercy, healing, wisdom, and peace for everyone involved. As Proverbs 4 verse 23 teaches, above all else, guard your heart, because your heart needs wisdom as much as it needs hope. What happened yesterday is not an invitation to blame yourself. It is an invitation to understand what was finally exposed. Because the most important detail is not simply that someone saw your soulmate yesterday. It is what that person discovered when your soulmate was confronted about you, and the unexpected words they spoke before everything changed. Those words may explain why your soulmate has been acting differently. And once you understand what was actually said, you may finally see this entire situation from a completely different angle. But what was said in those final moments before everything changed is the detail your soulmate cannot get out of their mind. It was not a casual sentence. It was not something that could simply be forgotten after the conversation ended. The person who saw your soulmate yesterday looked directly at them and brought up something about you that they were completely unprepared to hear. And for a few seconds, your soulmate said nothing at all. That silence mattered. Because until yesterday, your soulmate had been trying to convince others, and perhaps even themselves, that whatever existed between you had become easier to ignore. They had learned how to appear normal, how to smile at the right moments, how to continue with ordinary conversations while keeping one particular truth locked somewhere nobody could reach. But yesterday, someone reached it. The person standing before them noticed a reaction the instant you became the subject. A change in expression. A hesitation before answering. That tiny moment exposed what months of silence had successfully hidden. Then came the question your soulmate did not want to answer. Why does this person still affect you this much? Everything became quiet. Your soulmate could have laughed it off. They could have denied everything. They could have said you meant nothing anymore and ended the conversation immediately. But they didn't. Instead, something deeply unexpected happened. Your soulmate lowered their guard. And what they admitted next changed the entire conversation. They revealed that there was something involving you they regretted deeply, something they had replayed privately far more times than anyone knew. Not necessarily one dramatic mistake, but a moment when fear, pride, confusion, or poor timing caused them to act differently from what their heart truly wanted. The person listening suddenly realized this story was nothing like they had assumed. But there was more. Because then your soulmate said something about you that made the other person ask an even more uncomfortable question. If you still feel this strongly, why haven't you told them? That question landed differently. Your soulmate had no quick answer. And sometimes, my beloved child, the answer someone cannot give reveals more than the answer they prepare. I, Michael, want you to understand something important here. Do not turn this story into certainty about what another person will do tomorrow. Do not build your peace upon predictions. Instead, pay attention to the truth underneath it. Unresolved feelings become heavy when they remain unspoken, and yesterday your soulmate was forced to look directly at something they had avoided. Then the conversation took a turn nobody expected. The person who saw your soulmate mentioned something they had noticed earlier. Something connected to the way your soulmate still reacted whenever your name, your memory, or anything associated with you appeared. Your soulmate immediately became defensive. Who told you that? That was the moment the atmosphere changed. Because nobody had told them. They had noticed it themselves. And suddenly your soulmate understood that the feelings they believed they were hiding had become visible from the outside. Imagine someone walking through an old house at night believing every door is locked, only to discover one window has been open the entire time. That was your soulmate yesterday. The secret had been showing through. Not through grand declarations. Through small things. The pause when someone mentioned you. The way their attention changed. The strange distance that appeared whenever relationships were discussed. The memories they pretended no longer mattered. One by one, those details had formed a picture. And yesterday, someone finally said it aloud. You're still carrying this person with you. Your soulmate did not deny it. Stay close to what comes next, because this is where the meaning of yesterday becomes much deeper. Shortly after that emotionally charged encounter, the person who had spoken with your soulmate experienced a serious situation that led to hospitalization. The exact medical circumstances are not something you should speculate about, and you must never believe that your presence, thoughts, prayers, or connection with your soulmate somehow caused another human being to suffer. Pray for their recovery. Pray that everyone involved receives strength. But understand why yesterday now feels so unforgettable to your soulmate. One of the last meaningful conversations they had with this person before the hospitalization was about you. Think about that. Now every sentence from that conversation carries greater emotional weight. Every question, every pause, every unfinished answer. Your soulmate is replaying it differently because circumstances changed so suddenly afterward. And there is one sentence in particular they cannot escape. The person had looked at your soulmate and said something remarkably simple. If there's something you need to make right, don't assume you'll always have another day. Your soulmate went silent. Those words were not a prophecy. They were human wisdom. But after what happened later, they suddenly felt impossible to ignore. James 4 verse 14 reminds us that we do not know what tomorrow will bring. Life is fragile, and that truth can awaken people from emotional hesitation faster than almost anything else. Yesterday reminded your soulmate of that. The question is no longer simply, do I still care? A harder question has replaced it. What am I going to do about what I know? And that question is frightening them because answering it requires honesty. There is something else you need to understand. Your soulmate did something after learning about the hospitalization. Something small. Something nobody around them immediately understood. They went back to something connected with you. Perhaps an old conversation. A photograph. A saved memory. Something they had deliberately avoided because touching it meant reopening emotions they had worked hard to contain. And when they saw it again, one particular memory returned. A memory involving something you once said. At the time, your soulmate may not have understood how deeply those words would remain with them. Now they do. Because yesterday's conversation forced them to recognize something they had resisted for far too long. Some relationships end because love disappears. Others become silent because fear becomes louder than love. Those are not the same thing. But my beloved child, guard yourself from assuming that unresolved emotion automatically guarantees reunion. Real love must eventually become real action, honesty, accountability, consistency, and courage. This is where the story becomes even more revealing. Because your soulmate is now facing a decision. Not a decision someone else can make for them. Not something destiny forces against free will. A decision to remain silent. Or finally confront what they have been afraid to say to you. And there is one final detail from yesterday's conversation that changes the meaning of everything. Before the conversation ended, the hospitalized person asked your soulmate one last question about you. Your soulmate answered. Quietly. Honestly. And the answer was something they had never admitted so clearly before. Because when they were asked what they would do if they suddenly had one chance to speak to you without fear, without pride, and without knowing whether another opportunity would ever come, your soulmate revealed exactly what they would want to tell you. And those words are the reason yesterday may become the moment they can no longer pretend nothing remains between you. The answer your soulmate gave was so quiet that the person standing beside them almost asked them to repeat it. There was no dramatic speech. No carefully prepared explanation. Just a few honest words spoken after months of hiding behind silence. I would tell them I never stopped caring. I just didn't know how to come back after everything that happened. But that was not the entire confession. The person looked at your soulmate carefully and asked, "Then what are you actually afraid of?" Your soulmate hesitated. And this time, the answer revealed something far deeper than anyone expected. "I'm afraid they've finally learned how to live without me." Those words changed everything. Because suddenly, the real reason behind your soulmate's silence was exposed. It was not simply a lack of feeling. Somewhere along the way, fear had entered the space between you. The longer the silence lasted, the harder it became to break. Days became weeks. Perhaps weeks became months. And with every passing moment, your soulmate began imagining that reaching out might only reopen something you had fought hard to heal. But the person who saw them yesterday challenged that thinking. They asked a question your soulmate could not easily escape. How do you know what they feel if you've never had the courage to ask? There it was. The truth your soulmate had been avoiding. They didn't know. They had been building conclusions from silence. Maybe you have done that too. When two people stop communicating, the mind begins filling empty spaces with assumptions. They forgot me. They never cared. It meant more to me than it did to them. Yet sometimes two people can be standing on opposite sides of the same closed door, each believing the other is the one who locked it. But listen carefully, because what happened next is the detail that gave yesterday's conversation an entirely different weight. Before they separated, the person who is now hospitalized told your soulmate, "If you owe someone the truth, give them the truth. Don't wait for life to choose the timing for you." At that moment, your soulmate did not realize how heavily those words would return. Hours later, when news came that this same person had been hospitalized, everything suddenly felt different. The conversation replayed in your soulmate's mind. Every sentence. Every question. Especially those final words. And something changed inside them. Not because the hospitalization was caused by you. It was not. Not because heaven harmed someone to deliver a message. Never interpret suffering that way. But because an unexpected human crisis reminded your soulmate of something we all forget until life interrupts our plans. Tomorrow is never something we possess. Your soulmate had been living as though there would always be another opportunity. Another week to decide. Another month to find courage. Another perfect moment to explain everything. But yesterday shattered that illusion. Ecclesiastes 3 teaches that there is a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Your soulmate is beginning to wonder whether the season of silence has lasted too long. But there is something you do not yet know. After hearing about the hospitalization, your soulmate reached for their phone. They opened something connected to you. And for several minutes, they stared at it. Your name was right there. One movement away. One decision away, their fingers hovered over the screen. Then they began typing. Not one sentence. Several. They wrote something they had apparently carried inside themselves for longer than anyone realized. They wrote about regret. They wrote about misunderstanding. They wrote about the distance between you. And then they wrote the sentence they had been most afraid to admit. I don't know if I still have the right to say this, but losing contact with you affected me more than I ever admitted. Then they stopped. They read everything again. I understand where I hurt you. I accept what I did wrong. I am prepared to show you something different. That is where emotion becomes accountability. And that is the threshold your soulmate is standing before now. My beloved child, I want you to guard your heart here. Do not chase shadows. Do not search every notification hoping it is them. Do not place your life on hold waiting for another person to make a decision. If this connection is meant to be restored in a healthy way, you will not need to destroy your peace to receive it. Truth will come with clarity. Love worthy of your heart will come with consistency. And genuine regret will eventually reveal itself through action. But yesterday uncovered something important. Your soulmate's silence was not as empty as it appeared. Behind it were words they had never spoken. And someone finally heard those words. Someone who, only hours later, would unexpectedly end up in a hospital. Now that conversation has become impossible for your soulmate to forget. Yet there is one detail they still do not know. The hospitalized person had apparently noticed something before speaking to your soulmate, something that may explain why they brought you up in the first place. It was not random. They had seen something. Something connected to your soulmate's behavior whenever you were mentioned. And when they recognized what it meant, they decided your soulmate needed to hear the truth. That truth is now forcing your soulmate to confront a question they have avoided for far too long. If they truly care about you, why did they allow fear to make the decisions? I, Michael, tell you this not so you will wait helplessly, but so you will remember your worth while truth unfolds. You do not need to beg for what is sincere. You do not need to compete for what is meant to come honestly. And you should never confuse someone's hidden feelings with the commitment required to build something real. The next move belongs to them. But your next move belongs to you. Walk forward with peace. Because whether this person returns or not, yesterday has already forced something hidden into the light. And what the hospitalized person noticed before that conversation may reveal the one thing your soulmate has been trying hardest to hide, not from everyone else,